Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is about 22 hours since kickoff yesterday. No, 23 hours since kickoff yesterday. We watched a game that involved a lot of chaos, a lot of incredible moments, a lot of really bad play, and ultimately Inter Miami gets away with a 4-3 victory. It is a Friday night. We don't really do Friday night episodes. And so it is an interesting time to be having this conversation. I don't know if your Fridays are generally pleasant. I don't know if they're generally poor, but I'm curious, my co-host Saur, how are you feeling on this Friday evening as we embark on another post-game recap where we get to talk about Inter Miami?
Yeah, Fridays are a bit of a new day for us to do a podcast, but that's the League's Cup for you, right? The more Inter Miami goes forward in this tournament, the weirder the schedule gets. So, interesting day to be talking about Inter Miami. That game yesterday absolutely exhausted me. It was an absolute mess in that midfield. And I see Kareem in the chat after a very, very long time. How are you doing, Kareem? It's an absolute pleasure to have you back in here. And what a better game to talk about than this one. It had everything, 7 goals. I said it was going to be a goals galore, and we talked about how the midfield is going to be an issue. So I'd love for you guys to get involved in the chat and let us know what your initial thoughts were about that game, because there's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. Before we get into the game, let's go around Inter Miami world and talk about a few subjects. Listen, as long as Inter Miami's in this tournament, we are going to be going pregame, postgame, pregame, postgame, pregame, postgame. And we're not going to have time to just sit back and talk about issues and not issues, but things going on around the club in more depth. And so let's just take a minute or two to hit on a few points before we fast forward to the game. And let's start with Schneider Borgelin, who we found out on Thursday is transferring to a club in the Danish First Division and is starting his European adventure, which is something that a lot of soccer players dream of, getting that opportunity to go to Europe and have an impact. And he's now getting that. It is from what I can tell, sort of a mid to lower tier, not tier, like a club that's supposed to finish towards the bottom of the Danish league. But nevertheless, they're loading up with a big body who's got some athleticism, who can hold up, who can draw fouls. Schneider Borgelin going to Denmark. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it was a surprise. I don't think anybody expected that. And even before the club announced it, I believe Tata Martino announced it during one of his press conferences. So that was an interesting way to announce one of your players leaving. Means that we have less depth in our striker position. Could potentially imply that Ryan Carmichael might be getting pulled up to the first team, or we might be signing a new player. Opens up a roster slot for us to try and play around in the market with. I do feel it's going to be an interesting transfer window towards the end in this month, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this team or what the management and Chris Henderson do in terms of bringing new reinforcements in. But good luck to Schneider Borgelin. He's had some interesting moments for Inter Miami. Unfortunately, didn't necessarily work out for him, but that was the level of competition that he had going up against him in the striker position. So Denmark's a good place to go and play, man, and I hope he enjoys his football there.
Yeah, Borgelin, he's not a homegrown, but he is from the local area. Came, I think, through at Philadelphia, but we got his rights and he played on the B team. And then he did make his debut in 2023 and got a few opportunities, especially early in the season. I know Campana had started late to the season. I think he missed the first 6 weeks or so last year. So Borgelin got a few opportunities to really establish himself as a senior team player. Once Tata Martino came in, he went on loan. And I don't know if that, with the ambition that Inter Miami has, I'm not sure Schneider Borgelin was ready for this roster and to have an impact at this level at this point in his career. But going to Denmark and having that European dream, I think is really cool for him. As far as what it means for Inter Miami's roster, almost nothing. Basically, he was a supplemental roster player, which means they can replace him with a supplemental roster player, which means they can sign an academy kid or they can sign a draft pick. You mentioned Ryan Carmichael. I thought when I was going through what Inter Miami might do this past offseason that looking for a third striker in the draft might be a way something that interests them. And ultimately, that's what they did with the 24th pick. They got Ryan Carmichael, 22-year-old striker, third choice type player who can come give you minutes as a backup if you need it because someone has an injury or whatever, but ultimately not a guy that you're going to have on your roster for the next 6 years, and ultimately not a guy that you're counting on to win big games. And I think that's the same role that Schneider Borgelin has played over the last year and a half. Congratulations to him. Again, as far as what it means for Inter Miami, maybe they can promote one of the young kids that they put off, like a guy like Israel Boatwright or Santi Morales or Pep Casas, a guy that we've seen a couple times. I already mentioned Ryan Carmichael, but really we're talking about that level. Tyler Hall getting a debut. That's the type of player that could come in and replace Schneider Borgelin. This doesn't open up a spot for a big senior level signing. Of course, they still have a few spots for the senior level roster, and they did acquire the international roster slot. So I am very confident that they are still planning on bringing in one other player. I expect it to be a center back, but we shall see. Speaking of the transfer window, because the only other point I wanted to bring up is there are a lot of teams doing things right now in the transfer window to improve their roster. The Columbus Crew went out and got 2 new wingbacks to improve their roster. They saw us go get an injured player from River Plate, and they said, we're going to go get a healthy player from River Plate. They went out and got Daewon Jones, who's one of the best wingbacks in the league, or fullbacks in the league. He's a really good player that they acquired for almost nothing. Charlotte adding a big center back in Tim Ream. I just saw yesterday New England signed. I know New England's not really our competition right now, but they went out and signed a defensive midfielder that I really like and have had my eyes on for a long time. Not for Inter Miami, but just as an up-and-coming player in Europe. LAFC adding players. They might be adding Antoine Griezmann is sort of the rumor, but of course they did just get Olivier Giroud. And by the way, they might have a clear path to the Leagues Cup final on that West Coast because the LA Galaxy were eliminated last night. Anyways, the point is Inter Miami has to keep adding pieces because no one else around them is sitting quietly. Cincinnati, they cleared up a DP spot by releasing Aaron Bupenza. So I'm sure they're going to try and add another DP in the next week. Busy 5 days ahead as we enter that closing of the window, but Inter Miami has to be active, and I think they will be.
Yeah, you forgot Marco Reus as well for LA Galaxy. That's another big one. A lot of big movements happening, and the rate at which Inter Miami players either get injured or get red cards, I feel like we will need at least 5 more signings before the end of the window because we never seem to have any players available for more than a stretch of 2 games. And it's going to be an interesting final few days in this transfer window, that's for sure.
Okay, I'm going to pull up. Anything else before we get into the game? I think those were the 2 things that I kind of had circled.
No, I think Leagues Cup is on top of the agenda for everyone, so let's get straight into it.
Okay, let me pull up the lineup from last night because, and by the way, this is wrong. Matías Rojas was starting at that right wing spot, and Gressel started in the midfield. I don't want to dwell too much on the starting lineup, but I just want to remind everyone that when we were in the pregame show, by the way, if you're listening to this on audio only, I encourage you to check that out. We do it every pregame in the hour before kickoff, but that's only on YouTube. We talked about this midfield. We talked about Yannick Bright not starting. It was Redondo, Busquets, and Gressel. We thought Rojas might be in that midfield. We also avoided talking about Chelo Weigandt instead of Ian Frey for much of the half. We talked about the defensive partnership. Ultimately, I think we felt good about the front 3. We felt fine about the back 4, but that midfield we had a ton of concerns with, and that was the predominant topic of the entire pregame show. And I think that's going to be the predominant topic of this entire episode because I think a lot of what we thought might play out did play out. When I asked you in the pregame show, what are the odds that it's Busquets, Redondo, and Gressel, you said 0% chance. I asked the inverse, but you said there was no way it was going to be Busquets, Redondo, and Gressel. And that's exactly what it was. And I said there was only a 20-30% chance because ultimately I thought there was no way Tata Martino would feel like that would be an appropriate lineup. And yet that's exactly what we got. If you knew going into the game that was the midfield 3 we were going to get, what's the one sentence you would say in response to that?
I don't think I can say that sentence because you're gonna blur it out, but it's gonna be very it's going to be it's going to be full of guesses. That's what it's going to be. Our pre-game show yesterday was potentially one of the most pessimistic episodes that we've recorded, because it constantly felt like we were being very negative about this team. And I had to check myself constantly to be like, you know what, Inter Miami is still the better team, and we are going to be able to beat this Toronto side. And I was hoping and praying that my pessimism is unfounded, and Tata Martino, being the coach of Inter Miami, having the experience that he does, knows way more than I do about anything related to football. It turns out we were right in a lot of the ways, because this Inter Miami team made it so hard for themselves to win this game. We went into this game with one hand tied in the back. In the 6th round, down by 15 points, and we're expecting to go out and beat this Toronto team. It was awful. That midfield three that you just talked about, Redondo, Grasso, and Sergio Busquets, it's essentially all of them playing with one leg tied to the other.
Can I stop you for a second? Did you just say we went into the 16th down 15 points?
No, we went into the 6th round down 15 points with our hand tied at the back. If you've been watching Olympic boxing, you would know exactly what I mean, okay?
Can you just give us a 30-second explanation of what that means? Because not all of us have been watching Olympic boxing.
All right, so Olympic boxing is it is about knocking your opponent out, of course, but it's about gaining points, right? And we've gone into the 6th round in the Olympic boxing. Well, it's only 4 rounds, so you guys can check me on that. But if we go into half the bout is over, we're in the 6th round, we have one hand tied at the back, and we're down 15 points. That's essentially saying that we have shot ourselves in the foot before even going to play football. That's what we've done. We've handicapped ourselves. That's what we've done. And it was awful, awful.
Okay. Thank you for explaining.
By the way, I don't think I'm ever going to use a sports metaphor again. So you guys can rest easy on that.
I thought it was like a cricket thing at first. And I was like,
no,
I'm going to have to explain that. Olympic boxing, probably significantly more niche than cricket. So you went even beyond. Okay, anything else about the lineup before we get into the game? Because I just wanted to bring that up to reestablish how we were feeling going into this game.
I want to apologize to you, Scotty. Yesterday, I stopped you from talking about Ian Frey and Chelo Weigandt, and I feel like that conversation was so necessary. It would have saved us a lot of time today. So I feel like we didn't have that conversation yesterday, but by God, we need to have that conversation today, because we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it.
Okay, let's go through some of the moments of that very chaotic first half, just to remind everyone, because it has been 24 hours. It starts right away, 2nd minute. Federico Bernardeschi has a bad giveaway that leads to an immediate chance. Rojas picks up the ball and kind of heads it forward to Luis Suárez, who puts a limp shot on it, doesn't get it all his money's worth, and it's saved. But that was sort of the warning shot that showed what Toronto FC was coming with in this game. And then just a minute later, Inter Miami does take the lead. Jordi Alba puts in a cross to, it looks like Federico Redondo running in to try and get a head on it. It kind of just scoots past him and the defender straight to Matías Rojas, who's sitting at the far post, maybe 6 yards, wide, and just kind of recovers, cleans it up, and then whips it into the far post and puts Inter Miami up 1-0. Absolutely amazing way to start. Like you said, we were very pessimistic in the pregame show about this midfield, about Tata Martino's thinking for this game, and then that shut us up right away. Inter Miami goes up 1-0, and I think immediately we felt, okay, we're okay. Everything's going to be fine.
I questioned everything about my knowledge of the sport when that happened, because I was like, this is the most Inter Miami thing to do, right? We've been so pessimistic and so questioning the midfield so much, and the first thing that happens is Matías Rojas scores from the right wing spot, by the way, where we didn't even think he was going to be playing in that position. So definitely Tata Martino had some game plan in mind to implement that strategy. It was very, very interesting the way we started, because we played very direct football, and that caught Toronto off guard. And for the large parts of the first 10 minutes, we were all over them and could have scored 2 or 3. But what a way to start. And by the way, Matías Rojas, such good form. He has really picked up in contributing tangibly to this team's victories over the last few games. So I'm really happy for him, and very well constructed goal as well. Great finish. Couldn't have asked for a better start.
And then it just got better. It just got better and better. Another really good opportunity in the 10th minute. Ultimately, Gomez puts a shot on just off target. It goes just wide. But then in the 11th minute, Inter Miami takes a 2-0 lead. Busquets from deep, ball over the top, which we saw a number of times in that first half, to Jordi Alba making that run down the left side channel. And then he pushes it centrally to Diego Gomez, who from just outside the top of the box fires. Sean Johnson can't do anything about it. Inter Miami takes a 2-0 lead 11 minutes into this game. And it feels like glory, greatness, Inter Miami repeating as Leagues Cup champion. I don't know. What was the feeling? It was something beautiful, for sure.
Yeah, every question that I had about this midfield was being answered completely. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't know. This is the way to go. And I was like, okay, if we can score this many goals, if we can score 7 goals in this game, I don't think we need a defensive midfield. We can just keep scoring. And that's what it felt like. It felt like Inter Miami is just going to outscore the hell out of Toronto. And Gomez, again, with a great finish, just seems to find himself in these positions and gets the goal, gets the much needed second goal, and gives us a bit of a cushion to be like, okay, yeah, we're in a great space. But 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in football, and we saw that. So
what's the proper G word, greatness or glory?
I say glory. Glory just sounds, it has that aura about it.
Yes, and then it went away almost immediately because just 3 minutes later, Chelo Weigandt fouls Derek Etienne Jr. in the box, and Lorenzo Insigne converts on a penalty. That play is one that makes you shake your head, and I think we're going to talk about it later, so maybe we can just move on. The next big moment happens in the 18th minute. Federico Bernardeschi leaves the game, and this, I think, ended up having a huge impact on the game. We can talk about it again later. 20th minute, though, Inter Miami gets that glory back. Jordi Alba puts a ball for another one of those Busquets long balls to Jordi Alba. Alba puts the ball forward to Suárez, who sort of dekes the defender out of misplaying the ball, and it kind of crosses right in front of the defender who can't get a touch on it. And Suárez is then open in front of goal, chips Sean Johnson with class and calmness that you really love to see in your super veteran striker. And Inter Miami goes up 3-1 in the 20th minute. Dream start, even considering the penalty, scoring 3 goals in the first 20 minutes, completely dominating the game. I want to talk about Toronto after we go through all the big moments, but it felt like, wow, we can do no wrong, or at least 10 of the 11 players can do no wrong. And it was just so easy, man. It was so easy.
Yeah, and there was a clear game plan. There was a clear game plan to get the ball to Sergio Busquets, who's going to pop the ball into Jordi Alba, and then just get the ball in the box and hope that someone's at the end of it. It felt like every single time we went in front of the goal, we were creating a very dangerous opportunity, and we could have had 3, 4, 5 goals. We were 3 to the good, and it just felt like it wasn't going to stop. But there was this eerie feeling about this game where you felt like one error and this Toronto team can come back into it. And I feel like that's exactly what happened.
Again, I have things to say, but I'm going to save these conversations for a little bit. But the bad thing does happen in the 26th minute. Lorenzo Insigne pushes the ball forward to Prince Owusu, who is beyond the defense, gets his feet tangled up with David Martinez, was originally called a penalty in the box, and a yellow card for Martinez was reviewed. It was outside the box, and so they applied the dog so rules. David Martinez gets a red card. Ultimately, Lorenzo Insigne almost scores the free kick regardless. Drake Callender has to make an incredible save because he didn't see the ball until late. But Inter Miami now down to 10 men with David Martinez sent off. You're right. It felt like it was too easy, and now we were being punished for trying to take advantage of how easy it was, and we were making it very hard on ourselves. That was our second really bad play in our own final third. Didn't lead to a goal, obviously, but really scary times. And then for the next hour the next hour of gameplay, we had to play with 10 men. And we had
I
to
have a
do it without
question for
Yannick
you.
Brett.
So on this particular play where David Martinez fouls Owusu, would you have preferred for him to get a yellow and to give away the penalty, or for him to have got the red card and not the penalty?
No. Give him the goal and then keep the 11 men.
Yeah.
Just because of how easy it was. Just because of how easy it was for us to score at that point, right? If we had kept 11 men and with the way Toronto played, we could have scored 5, 6, 7 goals.
Dude,
and I know that's like a
we need
cliche,
to
certainly.
We need to see what water Tata Martino is making these boys drink, because 60 minutes, 10 man in a tournament competition is not easy, man. And I don't know how he did it, because the strength of the team is insane. Like, they've really got that mental edge to be able to pull it off.
I'm giving Tata Martino no credit for this. 38th minute, Jordi Alba fouls Prince Owusu in the box, and Insigne converts the penalty. So it got really scary there, because even though you go down 10 men, you have a 2-goal lead, and you feel like you can sit back and just eat an hour because you have a 2-goal lead. You don't have to try and score. You're not trying to desperately hold on to 1 goal. You have a 2-goal lead. And the fact that we give away a penalty, was it a questionable penalty? I think yes. I think if it wasn't called a penalty on the field, I don't know if VAR would have overturned that. But ultimately, the penalty is awarded and Insigne converts. It's 3-2, and we go into the half, and it looks very scary. Our midfield is getting run over. In the last 25 minutes of that first half, we were getting run through in the midfield consistently by Toronto. And that's without us being able to add any players to the field. You're very limited in what you can do substitution-wise because you're down to 10 men. It was, I think, really scary going into halftime, especially because it is a do-or-die game. You can't draw Toronto FC in this moment, because then you can lose on penalties. You can't lose to them because you don't get the next game to make up for it. So I got very nervous all of a sudden going into halftime.
And here's the thing, right? And I feel like I've mentioned this before, but in tournament games like the League's Cup, you can't make mistakes like the one that we did. If you have the opportunity to set your team up in the best possible way, and you choose to be like, you know what? No, this experiment has been working for the last 15 games, but I want to revert back to a Hail Mary sort of a style where we're going to completely outscore the competition. That's fine in the league, because you tend to have opportunities to rectify your mistakes if there are any. This could have been a completely different conversation if the scoreline was against Inter Miami, because then we would have been absolutely hammering Tata Martino. The mistakes were there to see. We knew what the issues were going into this game. And the fact that he chose to ignore those in favor of having more goals in the midfield just sets us up for a failure, because we can't repeat this against a team like Columbus. David Martinez is not going to be available in the next game. There's the same thing happened against Monterrey as well, where David Ruiz got a red card, and that's beyond your control. So these things, when some of the variables that you can't control go against yourself, and you set yourself up handicapping some of your abilities, it's a recipe for disaster, basically. And we really got away with one there.
I think you make a great point. There was 3 mistakes in that first half. The Chelo Weigandt penalty, the David Martinez red card, and then the Jordi Alba penalty. All 3 of those can cost you your tournament. And the fact that we had 3 of those in one half and it didn't cost us the tournament, I think is a testament to how well we set ourselves up to not even set ourselves up, but like scored a couple goals early and just almost put the game away. We were really close to putting the game away.
We got so lucky.
Okay, let's get through the second half, because the best moment of the game came in the 59th minute. Inter Miami down at 10 men. Jordi Alba sets up Matías Rojas for a beautiful left-footed banger from 7 yards outside the box, 8 yards outside the box. I don't know, but it was really, really impressive. Inter Miami goes up 4-2, and I thought, okay, at this point, we've got it. It's been 15 minutes in the second half. Toronto hasn't threatened us much, and I did think that second goal and the substitution we made at halftime put the game away for Inter Miami. Do you want to stop and talk about that goal, or should we just give Matías Rojas man of the match now for that moment.
Please don't give Matías Rojas the man of the match because I have an award for him. So that's really going to ruin my list. Dude, do you remember the episode where we did scouting Matías Rojas and we spoke about when we were about to sign him? We were like, oh, this player looks really good, dynamic dribbling. But his left foot is an absolute rocket. He's proven that 5 times over already for Inter Miami. And I would always forgive him every time he goes for a goal from outside the box because he can score those goals. Absolute beach of a half volley. Was it even a volley? I think it was along the ground. I don't think he hit it in the air. So brilliant shot. Took it so well, and he knew exactly what he was doing as soon as Jordi Alba set that ball up. So no hesitancy from him there at all. Give him more of those chances, man. Get him in those spaces. And I feel like the left might actually be the way, or the right might actually be the way to get the most out of Matías Rojas these days.
Yeah, no, there's no reason Matías Rojas can't do that playing where Federico Redondo plays. He just doesn't do that when he's in the midfield, and it is frustrating, but his talent and his best attributes come out when he comes in from the right wing. I agree with you, and I agree that that's his best position. It's just also Julian Gressel's best position, and so pick one of them.
Also Messi's best position.
Yeah, I know. So anyways, in the 79th minute, Toronto FC does pull one back. It's a cross from Lorenzo Insigne to Prince Owusu, who heads it back towards the middle, but Noah Allen is sort of in the way of that header, and it bounces off his shoulder, neck, and heads into the back of the net. Own goal for Noah Allen. Tough one. I can't put a lot of blame on Noah Allen because he's 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", not 6'2". And so
it wasn't his fault at all.
It's not. Yeah, that's not his
fault. You know whose fault it was?
Tata Martino's.
No, Chelo Weigandt's. Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Well, also David Martinez for not being in the game at that moment. But anyways. And Tata Martino for not putting.
Well, Rafa Aran as well for signing for Como, you know.
Yeah, exactly. 86th minute, Kevin Long, and this was the scariest moment in the second half. Kevin Long, their defender, steps up and takes a whale of a shot from very deep. And Drake Callender, I think, surprised that he took the shot, had to make a really nice save on that one. One of 2 big saves, I think, from Callender. And then in the 87th minute, that's when Leo Campana set up Redondo for what looked like an easy finish to make it 5-3. Redondo sort of sidesteps and 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 ultimately loses the opportunity. Hits it off the post.
No.
There was a little deflection.
Yes. You didn't say he didn't lose the opportunity. He hit it into the post. The damn post.
I think he hit it off a defender and it got a little bit deflected into the post.
I was literally waiting like this with my hands up. I was like, when is he going to shoot? Oh well, no harm done.
Any other moments from this game, or can we talk about Toronto for a few minutes? Because I have something to say.
Honestly, we could talk about every single moment in that first half because it was all over the place. I had to compose myself because my heartbeat was bounding. I don't remember watching that fast-paced of a game in recent memory for Inter Miami, especially since Messi's been on the bench and been away. I don't think we've seen Inter Miami play this chaotic, and we all know the reason for that. So it felt like we were watching one of those early season games where Inter Miami tends to make all the mistakes and then somehow get the victory.
Yeah, maybe the way we just went over that didn't do it justice, because that was especially in the first half, a wild first half. And really the first 26 minutes, going from goal to penalty to goal to red card to goal to penalty. It was a very hectic 30 minutes, and maybe we didn't do it justice, but for anyone that didn't watch, it was wild to experience that happening because it was just banger, 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 banger. What would normally be a game-changing moment happened every 6 minutes, and fun to watch, but ultimately not destructive. Yeah, exhausting and not destructive to Inter Miami's chances of winning the game. Thank God. Okay, Toronto. Let me take a second to gather my thoughts. gather my emotions. We have played 25 MLS games this season. 26 if you include 27 if you include the 2 games we played against Nashville in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, 28 if you include last night against MLS competition. I don't think another team played worse against Inter Miami in any of those 28 games than Toronto FC did last night. Orlando City was bad, but they kind of quit. What Toronto FC did in that first 25 to 30 minutes is the worst MLS soccer team I've seen play this season in any game I've watched, especially against Inter Miami. It was embarrassing, and I don't want Inter Miami to take a ton of confidence away from how effective and good they were in the first 20 minutes and how easily they scored, because while they were efficient and they made use of their chances, they were given so many easy opportunities by a Toronto team that could not kick the ball straight. They could not complete passes. They were out of position, unorganized. They looked slow. They looked lethargic. It was awful. And Inter Miami took advantage and scored 3 goals early. But it was not because Inter Miami was tactically brilliant. It was not because guys were making incredible runs or being so incredibly smart with their positioning. It was because Toronto FC was awful in those first 25, 30 minutes. I really wanted to go back and watch the game today. I didn't end up having time, but unbelievable how bad they were, especially for that first 20, 25 minutes. And Inter Miami took advantage, and that's what good teams do. But wow. Compared to what they were 3 weeks ago, it was awful.
And we thought that they were going to be better this time around than they were the last time we played them. We spoke a lot about their offensive capability and their attack and their midfield. One thing we didn't discuss much or touch upon was their defense. And their defense was absolutely dog pile. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, it was.
I tried not to curse there, so apologies if anyone thought I was cursing, but it was their defense was just so leaky, so many spaces. And one thing I want to give credit to Tata Martino for was he definitely had a plan of attack. He knew how he wanted to get those goals and how he wanted to attack this Toronto defense. And we were getting the ball over them every single time, with Busquets putting that ping ball in from deep crossfield to Jordi Alba. And every single time that ball came through, we had an opportunity on goal. It was well-constructed attack from Inter Miami, but boy, did Toronto make it easy for us to do that. And even when they went down to 10, we went down to 10 men. I don't remember a single opportunity where I was like, oh, Toronto's now starting to take control of the game. It didn't feel like that at all. We had one chance. That was the Rojas chance. We constructed really well, and we got the goal. And then the goal for them came out of the blue, honestly. I didn't feel like they were on top by any means. They have 57% possession somehow. And I guess losing Bernadeschi, who's one of their main creators, doesn't necessarily help their cause. But I completely agree with you. This was a Toronto team that thought that they could come and go toe-to-toe with Inter Miami. Didn't seem like they had much of a game plan. And it just felt like they were like a deer in a headlight, completely caught off guard with the way Inter Miami started the game. And they just never kicked off from the get-go. We had to do their job for them to be able to get back into the game at any stretch.
They were not good in the first 17 minutes with Bernadeschi on the field, but I think they might win that game if Bernadeschi plays 90 minutes, because he is their best creator. He's their best goal scorer. And when we went down to 10 men, they would have just fed him the ball over and over and over again, like they were doing with Insigne. And so having 2 options to just go to over and over and over again, especially with how much of the ball they had, it would have been very dangerous. I think Inter Miami got really lucky that Bernadeschi left the game early. But yeah, they had no answer. I remember last game, they kind of surprised us. And by last game, I mean that July 17th game. They surprised us with a 4 in the back lineup when normally they play with the back 3. In last night's game, they went back to a back 3, and that spot behind the left wing back, which Jordi Alba takes advantage of so effectively. And Henry Wingo, who is their new signing. This was his first start with Toronto. He was sort of set to be their right wing back in last night's game. Clearly, there was a communication breakdown. Clearly, he wasn't ready for the moment. And Inter Miami took advantage of that. And Busquets saw that early, and Alba was making those runs, and Busquets was stepping back into the back line and pinging those balls over the top. And it was just consistently from Miami. And Kareem has it absolutely right here. They could not stop that Busquets ball over the top to Alba because it was just open every single time. That back three was not well organized. So it was just really bad from Toronto. And I thought
did all our goals come from Jordi Alba's side? Yeah,
he had an assist on everything.
Except the Matías Rojas one.
Where it comes back to Jordi Alba.
Yeah, somehow.
But yeah.
Well, yeah, it did come from his side. Yeah, that's true. So it just felt like that was the game plan. And well done to Tata Martino for recognizing that. But we spoke about this in our pregame show. There was going to be space in the wide channels. And that's why I wanted Ian Trey to start. Because Weigandt was not able to make use of that by any means. And thank God we have Jordi Alba, because he was like, I'm gonna just have fun in this whale of space that I have here. And it worked out for us.
Dude, if we don't have Jordi Alba, we lose that game. And
I'll be honest, if we don't have Jordi Alba, we would have lost a few games this season.
I know, but this is a do or die. I am with Kareem on this one. I am not giving Tata Martino credit for that. That is Busquets and Alba, and that's just prime what they do. And they clearly saw this is a new player. This is so obvious that I'm not giving Tata Martino credit. I'll be honest, I'm not giving Tata Martino credit for anything in this episode. So if you want to, I'm not going to be upset about it. But
Are we doing the Tata Martino in the hot seat section again this podcast? Because we should. We definitely should.
Listen, he has to win the next 4 straight games, or he's going back on the hot seat. That's my stance right now, which I'm upset with him. So if he has a killer game plan on Monday night, if we play Columbus, then he can get off the hot seat again. But for now, if we
play Kansas City, it's going to be again Hail Mary football.
Okay. Let's talk about the midfield. We have been dancing around it, but this is why.
How many times have we mentioned Bright yet?
This is why I'm so upset with Tata Martino. That midfield is going to give up 3 goals a game. It's going to give up 3 goals a game. They started with Julian Gressel, Federico Redondo as the dual 8s, and Sergio Busquets behind him. Everything that Sergio Busquets does, he can do on the back line. He doesn't need to be in the midfield. And by putting him in there and forcing Julian Gressel and Federico Redondo onto the pitch, you then have to take out Yannick Bright, who is the heart of our defensive efforts. He is the best defensive player on this team, regardless of position, unless Drake Callender is in the best form of the season. He is so good. I didn't give him an award, so I'm just going to talk about him for the next few minutes. But when he came on at halftime, the runs through the middle, the running through the middle that Toronto did for the last 20 minutes stopped immediately. The second opportunity that Toronto had, the one that led to David Martinez's red card, that doesn't happen if Yannick Bright's on the field, because Federico Redondo is in the wrong spot again, which is a consistent theme with Redondo. And Yannick Bright would have been in the right spot. We didn't see for the last 2 months those transition opportunities for the opposite team. And we saw it 3 or 4 times in that first half. And the reason is Yannick Bright's not in there. Start Yannick Bright. Give up on this obsession with starting Gressel and Redondo and Busquets. The 3 of them together have no legs. I know everyone can see it. It's not just me who has Yannick Bright tinted glasses. It is everyone can see it. It is not strong defensively. It cannot battle with other midfields. And again, thank God that Toronto was awful and gifted us 3 goals, because we would have been in trouble if they hadn't, because of our midfield.
You know, when Yannick Bright came on and the things he did in the pitch in the first 5 minutes after coming on in that second half, I wanted to stop myself from tweeting as much as I was, because I was on my knees for Yannick Bright. The way he was absolutely dominating that midfield. He plays so confident and so smart for his age, and he's just so composed. Every time he gets the ball, he will pass it in the exact... Okay, he may not be the most prolific progressive passer of the ball, but he always gets it to the man that's free. He always moves the ball forward. He takes the ball, and now I realize after yesterday, we haven't talked much about how much he progresses the ball by dribbling it. Yesterday, he did that like three times and got us out of pressure.
He does.
Absolutely phenomenal player. Put so much of the effort into the defense that the rest around him don't even need to worry about it anymore. And the funniest part is I can think of 5 other midfield combinations that are better than the one that Tata Martino put out yesterday. And
I think I got 15.
I wanted to be generous,
but I'll be honest with you. We have like 7 startable midfielders in Gomez, Busquets, Gressel, Redondo, Kramaski, Bright, and David Ruiz and Rojas. There are so many combinations, and I think if you take those 7, the very worst midfield combination is the 3 we saw last night because of the lack of legs, the lack of athleticism, the lack of defensive positioning, the take, like when you force them to cover for each other, you take away their best qualities going forward, specifically with Gressel and Redondo. And so it's just the worst. And you have so many better options. And the worst part about this is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but that felt like the 11 Tata Martino was going to go with for the rest of this tournament if he could. And it's going to lose the next game if we play a good team. Now, thankfully, we're not going to get that because of the red card. But
you know what? This comment about Tony where he mentions that the midfield was strong enough, and the reason we actually got into the trouble that we did was because Chelo messed up. I sort of agree with it, but this midfield was strong enough for Toronto.
No, hold on. Stop.
Wait. Let me complete my sentence, right? We saw how good this midfield was offensively in creating the chances, but that's not what all football is about, right? As soon as Toronto had one opportunity, we lost. We went down 10 men. We lost a man. We were down 10 men. Any other team would have capitalized on that, and we would be out of the tournament. You would not be making the sentence about the midfield not being strong enough if we had lost that game yesterday. This was really well set up to score goals, but defense is a major part of this game. And Toronto was threatening, especially when Bernadeschi was on the pitch offensively, and we were absolutely struggling in defensive transition. So for us to just completely ignore that defensive side would be a disservice to what we need to do to win this tournament. We can't go into the next games thinking this way. At least I don't think so.
And I wanted to say that I wanted to have that conversation about Toronto and how poorly they played, because that's why we didn't get bit in the butt in the midfield early on. I will also say the reason that David Martinez has to make a last man challenge is because we let them run right through our midfield. The reason Jordi Alba is in a position where he has to make that challenge at the end is because we let them run through our midfield. They had another opportunity in the first half where they created because they ran right through our midfield. And this was Toronto playing what I would imagine was Toronto's worst game of the season from a up to their standard perspective. Everything they did was because they ran through our midfield. And you're totally welcome to disagree. That's fine. It was I didn't rewatch the game, so maybe I saw it wrong the first time because I was focusing so much on in the pregame show. Like, that happens, and I apologize if that's the case. I haven't rewatched it, but man, it's tough.
Yeah, and I agree with you that, again, I want to check my biases and be sure that I'm, not feeding into it. So this is definitely a point to make. But for me, the biggest point is if this was an MLS game, that would have been fine. But we weren't 4-0 up in 15 minutes. That's the point, right? And this is tournament football. You can't make one mistake and you'll be out if you make that mistake.
Again, we scored 3 goals in the first 20 minutes because Toronto was awful. Awful. Like, we wouldn't, if we played Columbus Crew last night, we wouldn't have scored those 3 goals. If we played a normal Toronto team on a different night when they didn't have whatever they ate for lunch that day, whatever, like, we wouldn't have scored 3 goals against them. But I digress. Diego Gomez played as a left winger. I think he's good there. I would like to see him play in the midfield, and he did go into the midfield after the red card, and I thought we were a little bit better. We were playing sort of that 4-4-2 or
I actually like
4-4-1.
Gomez in the left place now.
No,
I'll be honest.
I'm happy with it. If
Do you
the
prefer
midfield is
him
right
over Robert Taylor?
right now, yeah, because Taylor's not
Yeah,
in form.
I would agree. Yeah.
Um,
And he links up really well with Jordi Alba. I think someone
my
made a comment about that in chat, and I really like that.
my point is that based on who was on the field last night, I would have liked to see Diego Gomez in the midfield. If you give us a midfield that I believe in, then I'm happy with Diego Gomez up top. I think you wanted to make a point, because we talked about it pre-show, about something to do with the midfield, and I forgot. And I wanted to give you that opportunity if it was still on the tip of your tongue.
I'll be honest, I've forgotten what I needed to say about the midfield, and it was potentially to do with the combination, and it was potentially to do with us having Gresso and Redondo in there next to each other with Busquets. I feel like Busquets could have easily been in that back line and got the job done. And I agree with Tony. I've maintained this. I think the best team for this Inter Miami, the best 11, is going to be when Busquets is playing in that midfield. But I do not enjoy him playing next to Redondo and Gresso by any means at all.
Yeah.
There's absolutely zero athleticism in there. And it's all good and well and done when we can say that we can score 4 goals, but the opposition can just come back and score 4 as well. And this midfield would be absolutely ripped apart. They can cut through us like butter at times. And I'd rather not test it, especially in this tournament. And yeah, for me, I think it's a recipe for disaster. And I've said this 15,000 times already, so we should move on.
Yeah. Last point. The last time we had a midfield this poor was against St. Louis City, and then the game before that against Atlanta, where we had back-to-back games with really poor midfield, really bad defensively, really bad in defensive transition. And one of the things I think we as a fan base forgot is that we're really bad at defensive transitions. And the reason we stopped being bad at that is because we put Yannick Bright in the midfield. Okay, that's my last thing. We can move on.
No, I agree with Kareem. The best midfield is one of Lawson, Sunderland, Busquets, and Gressel. That's the best one. I don't think that midfield's ever lost a game, by the way.
I think that might be exactly what we started against the New York Red Bulls.
Okay, here's a good question by Tony, though. Here's a good question, right? We've constantly talked about what's your best midfield 3. Give me your best midfield 3 when everyone's fit.
Okay, I'll be honest. I don't necessarily agree that Busquets can't play in the back line. I know Martinez and Aviles have to build chemistry. I'm not even convinced about that. I think Inter Miami might be bringing in another center back to partner with Martinez over the next couple of days. So the Aviles-Martinez tandem might already be finished. But my best 3 with Busquets in the midfield is just with Bright in it and Gomez in it. And I think that 3 has an incredible ability to play through the midfield, has incredible defensive presence, can press, can play stout in your own final third, can get forward and be effective in the opposition final third. And then with Gomez, you can just destroy whatever the opposition wants to do with their own patterns of play in the midfield. So to me, that is like a midfield that's absolutely killer. And I think that is, if everyone's healthy and we add another center back, that's probably the midfield that's Inter Miami's best 3 in their best 11, right? So
yeah, I would tend to agree with that, I think.
Should we get into awards, or is there anything else you want to talk about with this game?
No, I feel like we're going to keep harping on about the same point.
I know, it's true. And we've made it so many times, so I don't want to be repetitive or annoying. So
yeah,
we can get to awards if we want.
And I think we're going to have that individual player conversation in the awards, which is very much needed. So,
okay, then it is time for our awards. As always on this show, we give out 6 awards: a man of the match, a heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. And because you started last time, it is my turn to go first tonight. And so for the man of the match, I'm giving Jordi Alba, with his 4 assists, the award, because he was outstanding, a game breaker, a game changer. I went back and looked at his assists that he actually got, and some of them were sort of lucky. He had a ball. The first one was a ball over the top, but he was aiming for Redondo, and it kind of just goes past everyone to Matías Rojas, who then just whips it in. The one to Suárez could have been cleared by the defender, but Suárez just sort of dekes him and confuses the defender and finishes. I thought that was belonging more to Suárez than to what Jordi Alba did. But then there was a number of chances where Jordi Alba set up his teammates to score goals. So I think he was worth 4 assists, even if it wasn't the 4 that he actually got, which is an incredible game. I mean, and it's an incredible game. And Jordi Alba, I think when you think about it, think through it thoroughly, and you think about all 90 minutes, he was the man of the match. And that Busquets to Alba combo, especially in the first half, was just opening up everything. And so give me Jordi Alba, man of the match.
Absolutely 100% agree with you. I don't think there's a case to be made about any other player except maybe Matías Rojas. But Jordi Alba, 4 assists in a game, never been done before. I think that's a Leagues Cup record. His career best as well. He was everywhere, man. He just seemed to take control of the game in a way that nobody else can do. And in the absence of Messi, you can really see the quality difference with the rest of the squad and Jordi Alba and Busquets, obviously. And they just absolutely controlled the game when we needed to. The reason we got off to such a hot start was because the two of them just knew exactly what they needed to do in the first 5 minutes. We could have had a lot more goals, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jordi Alba was at the heart of all of them. And Alba tends to do this thing where he becomes very effective towards the end of the game. Last 20 minutes, I'm starting to call the Alba time. This time around, he started the game with Alba time and he ended the game with Alba time. So give him the man of the match award. Absolutely no complaints. Well done to him. And thank God we have the best left back in the MLS.
Yeah, and a bounce back game too. I didn't think he was great against Tigres. I think he had a number of turnovers and wasn't particularly impactful going forward. And so bounce back game and ultimately 4 assists is almost Messi territory, right? So congratulations to him. He deserves it, and an incredible game from him. So that leads us to the heron that flew north. This is our award for the player that was doing the wrong thing, because any Florida heron flying north is doing the wrong thing. I think you felt like you saw one of our players heading in the wrong direction. Tell me, who was your heron that flew north?
Brother, he wasn't in the wrong direction. He got on the wrong bus and ended up on the bloody west coast of the States. It was Chelo Weigandt, man. What a disappointment. An absolute disaster class of a performance. He didn't do a single thing right in that game. He just looked absolutely devoid of confidence. He was 1 step or 2 steps behind every single player on that pitch. And that's saying something considering how poor Toronto was as a team. He just wasn't able to deal with Larea at all. He obviously conceded that penalty. His involvement in the second goal we've talked about, where he should have closed down, or the third goal, where he should have closed down the cross coming into Owusu. I think Insigne was on the ball who gave that assist. He should have 100% closed down. He had so much time to go up to Insigne and try and challenge for the ball. Just didn't do that. And in the second goal as well, where David Martinez had to foul the player, Chelo Weigandt was in the spot to be able to make a run and try something out, right? Challenge for the ball, make a difference in that play. He was jogging, and it was bad, man. He stunk up the gaff bad. And I think this hurts a lot more because I've vouched for him in the past. And now that we know that Ian Frey is sitting in the wings waiting to take that claim of the best right back in the league, it just hurts, man. I agree, Matthias. He did have a good couple of crosses. He had that one opportunity that Gomez sort of hit with his outside of the foot and went over the bar. That was really well done. So I take back my words of him not doing anything right in this game. He had one good chance that he created. But other than that, I thought he was the worst player on the pitch. And I would love to see what his rating was for this game, because I would not have rated him high by any means.
You know what we've seen over the last 2 games? It's Chelo Weigandt trying to play as an attacking fullback, and it's been awful. It's been awful. And we praised him a lot in the first 2 months, 3 months he was here, because he was playing very conservatively, and we felt having another body back in the back line really helped our team be stronger defensively. But he has abandoned that over the last 24 hours. I'm sorry, over the past 2 games. And I agree with you. I think he's been poor. Yes, he had a one or two good assists. Assists, 2 crosses. I think he had 1 or 2 in the previous game, but I think these last 2 games were the worst 180 minutes he's played as an Inter Miami Heron. Really bad. And I had an award for him that I thought was very clever, but I'll have to save it for another time because he, I think, is a deserving Heron that flew north.
Is this the worst individual performance that we've seen from a player, from an Inter Miami player this season?
No. Chelo was worse last. I thought Chelo was worse last game, honestly.
See, that's the thing. I thought Chelo was fine last game. This game, I thought he was absolutely stinking.
No, I thought he was worse last game. The foul, the penalty that he gave up was just like so boneheaded, and that has to be his thing. He has to be better defensively than Ian Frey because he's not even close to what Ian Frey is offensively. Like we're giving Chelo credit for putting in a good cross or 2, but Ian Frey would put in 4 great crosses, have an assist, be a threat on set pieces, be able to cut in, would probably get a shot off every other game. Like he's so much more dynamic going forward. He's a better presser. Like the only thing that Chelo might have that Tata could see is better is just being stout and sturdy on that right wing. And he was getting abused by Lorenzo Insigne. He was getting abused by Richie Larea. It was a bad game, man.
And the problem is, I feel like he was okay when we started him off. When he first came into the club, he was decent in his first few runs. And it just seems like his confidence has started to dip more and more and more and more. And that penalty, he could have easily passed the ball back to Drake Callender, who could have, cleared the ball. But he just tried to be cheeky with it, and it cost him. And then after that, it just felt like he was out of position, was one step behind, seemed leggy at times as well during the game, which was really hard to see. And just wasn't a great watch, especially when you're comparing him to what's happening on the other side of the field with Jordi Alba absolutely tearing it up. Imagine if we had the same level of talent on that side. And I'm not saying Chelo Weigandt is not talented, but imagine having a Jordi Alba on the right side. We would walk this league, man. We would absolutely walk this league.
The last game, in our post-game last time, I talked about how the standard across the field has raised. And so even though Chelo is a good right back by Inter Miami historical standards and possibly the best right back we've ever had that's played at that position more than 10 games. Like I do think he's an upgrade on DeAndre Yedlin, but the standard is so much higher now than it was a year ago or 3 years ago that he's just not hitting it. And when you have someone there that is a young and exciting homegrown talent that we all want to see on the pitch that has done nothing but sparkle every time you put him there and has the tools to be incredible. It's just hard to watch, man. So
yeah, we should change Ian Frey's name. By the way, Sparkle.
I want to say something. The last time we played the Columbus Crew, Chelo Weigandt was not available and Ian Frey started and he scored a goal and he was our best player in that match. And we might be playing the Columbus Crew again on Monday night. Something to think about.
Ian Frey is not starting. I've given up on
it. I agree. But something to consider.
Yeah. All right. What's your first award?
I don't want to take your award, even though I feel like I have a really nice, fun to say one. So I'm going to save that for my second one. And I hope that you take the one you want most with your next award. And I will start with a very important person award.
The very important person award. That's the VIP award. And there's only one VIP on this team. And that is Tata Martino. No. This award goes to who can we not play without? Gomez. There you go. This award goes to Gomez. I don't think we've talked about him enough.
How did you get Gomez from very important
person? So, he was an important person for this team for a while. He's been really stepping up this season, contributing a lot. On our power rankings, on our player rankings that we've done in the past, Gomez has creeped up into the top 5. And then he secured a transfer to Brighton. And once he's now Premier League stamped, he's become a very important player from just an important player. So for me, Diego Gomez has to get this award, right? Of course.
It is not very important player. It's very important person. And that distinction matters because Do you know what very important people tend to have when they go out in public?
A lot of followers.
And
Paparazzi.
do you know what you need when you have a lot of followers?
Bodyguards.
Security, bodyguards, protection. You know who needs protection when he goes out in public?
Luis
Martinez.
Suárez. Oh.
David Martinez. I thought he was excellent in his first game against Puebla. I thought he was very good against Tigres, and I thought we saw his worst 25 minutes as an Inter Miami player in this game. It wasn't just the red card. I think he had 2 other opportunities that he didn't handle particularly well, and I thought that's because our midfield was just allowing runners to run through. We were so critical earlier in the season of Nico Frede and Aviles and Christoph because we were letting runners just run through our midfield. And yes, I am making this about Yannick Bright, but it does go to David Martinez. We were letting runners run through our midfield for the first 4 months of the season, and we were blaming it on our defense, and we were blaming it on the formation, and we were blaming it on this and that and everything except our midfield balance. And then we saw what a really strong midfield looks like, and everything was way better. And I think we forgot that we were bad before. David Martinez, like any center back, and I'm not criticizing David Martinez, like any center back is going to play substantially better with more confidence, with more poise, with more confidence when he has a true 6 that he's confident in front of him. He's going to be willing and capable and able to express himself in all of his talents. And we didn't see that yesterday, even though it was only for 25 minutes or 27, because our midfield was non-existent defensively. So David Martinez, I criticize you for getting a red card, but it's, tough. It's a sort of a tough moment. I'm not giving you too much bad press for that, but there was a couple other moments I didn't think you handled well. And I think you realize what it was like to have runners coming at you from everywhere, which Nico Frede and Aviles have had plenty of this season.
Yeah, I think one thing that I noticed when I was rewatching the game, I thought David Martinez was quick, but he got beaten for pace when he conceded that penalty by quite a margin. Of course, he wasn't helped by the fact that he needed to cover from behind, and he wasn't necessarily expecting the position to be where he was. And a lot of factors go into it. Long story short, he didn't handle it as well as he could have. And one thing led to another. Unfortunately, we're not going to see him for the next game, which is potentially the most important game of our season. And that tends to be the theme of Inter Miami's season thus far. But that being said, I think both of us have the same philosophy in the sense that regardless of how good your defenders you have, you can't expose them in this way by pushing all your midfielders so high up and not having any legs in there to try and support defensively. Because yes, all well and good when you can play a high line, but if you leave your defenders on an island with the likes of Insigne and Bernadeschi, Columbus is going to absolutely have a field day against this setup if that's the case. And I wouldn't blame anybody, regardless of whether it's Virgil van Dijk in there or whether it's David Martinez in there, if they get beaten, because you don't necessarily have the same defensive cover to protect yourself. And whether that's down to Yannick Bright in there, whether that's down to having a number 6, I would love to have an out-and-out number 6 who's a specialist and who's a progressive player, and have Yannick Bright in the curtains to try and learn from him, because I think he has a ceiling to go. But without that one single pivot in there, you can't rely on Sergio Busquets to be that defensive presence. You can't rely on Redondo to be that defensive presence. And coming back to David Martinez, I hope he comes back from this slight misstep, but it is what it is, man. He's just shrugging off some cobwebs.
Here's what I'll say. And again, I don't want to be too critical because we watched Frede struggle in the same situation, and Aviles and Christoph and Busquets. And I mean, they've all struggled when they are put in that situation. I hope that he gets his redemption against Tigres in the quarterfinals. That's all I'll say. What is your first individual award, Saur? Enlighten us.
Okay. I'm going to go for the Ganado Gattuso Award.
The Ganado Gattuso Award.
And yes, this is the AC Milan legend that I'm referring to.
Okay. I don't know. What position did he play?
He played defender or midfielder.
You know what? I can get this. Just give me a second. By the way, I'm stealing your next award. It's Benjamin Kramaski because he's, a G.
That's the worst explanation for an award that you've come up with. Okay, have you seen that Gennaro Gattuso? Have you seen that Gennaro Gattuso meme where he's like, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit?
No.
You've not seen that? Someone needs to send Scotty the link for that particular meme because it's absolutely hilarious. But Gennaro Gattuso, go watch on YouTube. He has some hilarious moments as manager. And he had this one very interesting line where he was talking about, I believe he was talking about his team, but he went like, oh, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And that is the perfect explanation of how Redondo has been playing this entire.
Apologies for the language. Everyone.
Yes, it's adopted from a third source, so it's not directly from us. But Redondo has been playing sometimes good, but sometimes really, really bad. And I feel like I need to have a conversation about him to understand what's going on, because he definitely has the talent and the abilities in his locker to make a difference in this midfield. And he could potentially be in the conversation for the best midfield trio for Inter Miami, right? But it just seems like he hasn't really discovered his place. And we've had this conversation about Gressel before. So I want to understand where you think Redondo fits best and how you evaluated his performance yesterday, because I thought he was slightly he was outshone by some of the other players around him, because Matías Rojas had a great game. Of course, Sergio Busquets was fantastic, and he did seem like slightly lost. Had a great chance to finish the game off, score the 5th goal, and absolutely bottled it. And for me, I don't think he's had that great of a game yesterday, and not been in good form either.
I told you where he stood after the last game, and that in my head, he's not one of our 3 best midfielders. And for now, I'm putting him in the I hope he has an improvement for next season category. I had an award for Chelo Weigandt that was excellent. And then I was going to adapt it to work for Federico Redondo.
Oh, no.
The same award stolen twice.
I'm so sorry, man.
He's not one of the best midfielders, and I think Kareem said it well. He has been a disappointment, and considering what Inter Miami thought they were getting in this player, it has been underwhelming to say the least. He had a really good game against Toronto FC 3 weeks ago. Other than that, I don't know if he's had a good game comparatively to our other midfielders since he got here. Maybe that DC United game early. I don't see it. And the things that are the least obvious are the things he's the worst at. And so if the average fan is not feeling the impact, then it's really a problem, because his positioning is really bad. The penalty on David Martinez, I blame that on Federico Redondo more than any other player. And when you compare him to what you see from Diego Gomez, when you compare him to what you see with Yannick Bright, when you compare him to Benjamin Kramaski even, it's just not there. It's just not there. And even guys like Gressel and Rojas, who have done a job in the midfield, and I think Redondo's better in the midfield, but he's better than 2 guys that are playing out of position in the midfield. So it's like, I really don't know. I don't know what to say about Redondo, because I don't want to kill him. I don't want to be overly negative, but he's not one of the 3 best midfielders, and starting him over Yannick Bright it's just awful. And I wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to frame it differently. So maybe I'll just tell you what my award was going to be, but I was going to give the Pride of Argentina, because it feels like we're treating him and Chelo as if they have proven so much in this game that they are legends, that they are unstoppable, that they are, we're treating them like they're Alba and Busquets, and they start whenever they're healthy and they start whenever they're available. And maybe we give them a rest if they started a ton of games in a row. And they are not that. They haven't proven that. Chelo, significantly less than Redondo, because at least Redondo has the price tag associated with him. But of course, that also comes with higher expectations. But Yannick Bright is more impactful in the midfield. Diego Gomez, significantly more impactful in the midfield. Sergio Busquets, we talk about putting Busquets back in the midfield. That has to come at the expense of Gressel and Redondo before Yannick Bright, before Diego Gomez, probably before Benjamin Kramaski. Granted, we haven't seen Kramaski in close to a month now, but that's where I'm at with Redondo. It's like he's fun, take him off the bench, put him in, start him for games that don't matter. But against the Columbus Crew on Monday, if we play Columbus, and that game is kicking off any minute now between Columbus and Sporting Kansas City, if he starts over Yannick Bright, we're gonna lose, and I'm gonna freak out, and I'm gonna be on the Tata out is like a real possibility. Hot seat conversation.
Yeah, guys, watch out for the next episode of the Drive Ping Dialogue to see how Scotty reacts. But anyways, going back to Redondo, I hope this is his Gomez season, and next season he comes back absolutely firing, because there's potential for sure, but he just hasn't shown it. All right, what's your next award? The one that you've stolen from me. Shame.
In my defense, you stole the same award twice already from me. I'm giving the silky smooth winger with the sweet left foot award.
Of course, it's Matías Rojas, and I had such a better award for him. My award was
it's not.
every day.
It's not.
Oh.
You want another guess?
Silky smooth winger with a... Diego Gomez.
It is actually Matías Rojas. I just wanted to give you a little bit of confidence there. What a banger in the second half. That first one, really nice too, to pull it down. Dude, he's a winger. He is a winger, and he disappears in the midfield, and Tata sees that. It's just like, and I have no criticism of him switching and putting Rojas out at right wing. I think Rojas is good there. I think he feels comfortable there. He's willing to take guys on one-on-one, and then when he's higher up the pitch, he will whip in a banger. He will take that shot in a way that not everyone will. And so he's a winger, dude. And I would love to see him on the left wing to see what he looks like there. We haven't seen more than a few, 20 minutes at a time there. But when Messi comes back, like, he could find minutes as a left winger. And I want to see what it looks like, because the midfield is not his position. And can he do a job? Sure. Can you win a game with him in the midfield? Sure. But Tata's trying to get him more comfortable, and it is coming at the expense of Julian Gressel, but that's not what this award's about. This award's about Matías Rojas, who is the silky smooth winger with the sweet left foot.
You have done better in the past, Scotty, so I'm disappointed in your award name. Should have prepared beforehand. I will say, Matías Rojas seems like a player who had this one tool that he learned as a kid. He realized that his left foot is really good. And if you treat it like a sword, he just kept on sharpening that over and over and over and over to the point that every time he unleashes a shot from that left foot, it is in the back of the net or absolutely tearing through on target, on goal. He's had some performances where he hasn't necessarily shown for us, but you mentioned the word impact, that Redondo wasn't impactful in the midfield. Matías Rojas can have an impact even when he's absolutely terrible throughout the game. Mm-hmm. And he can unleash a left foot and score a goal and change the game, even if he's not doing anything else. So for me, that's really valuable to have. And I think he's settled in really well. These last few games, he started to get into some sort of form. I think he prefers to be on the wings as well, likes to take on players. And I do completely agree with you. He might be I would love to see him on the left side once Messi's back in, because it seems like he's enjoying that wing play role. And it's a very valuable asset to have when you need to score goals. Because we could have been in a big trouble if he hadn't scored that fourth, and it wasn't easy to score that fourth at all.
Okay, I want to have a few conversations. So let's wrap it up with your second and final award before we get to them, because I do think there's some interesting things to talk about. But let me hear what your second award is that is going to blow my socks off.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's our last award and we have stuff to talk about because I can make this quick. The Drunken Master Award.
The Drunken Master?
Yeah. And yes, this is based on Jackie Chan's movie, if anyone's seen it.
I haven't. I don't know what you're talking about. But obviously the answer is Luis Suarez.
How? How did you get that? That is the answer. All right. Moving on. No, that's true.
It was a class finish. It was a great finish.
Yeah. No, it not just being a great finish, right? Drunken Master is this strategy in martial arts, if anyone is interested in martial arts, where you pretend to be inebriated and you try to take advantage of your opposition by putting them in an overconfident position where they think they have the advantage over you. So you're able to use that drunkenness to try and get an upper hand over your opposition. And that's what I think Luis Suarez does. He doesn't necessarily have the best athleticism, not the biggest player, not the strongest either, but he just outsmarts the opposition in so many little ways and then creates an opportunity to score. And sometimes he'll do nothing for 30 minutes and then he'll just pop up in the right spot and score a goal. And you're like, oh, yeah, Suarez is playing this game. And I wonder what it must be like playing against him when you're a defender, because he's an absolute menace in doing that. That goal was, he judged where the ball was going to go, brushed aside his defender, and what a class finish with that chip. Thank God he plays for Inter Miami. I need to thank God for a lot of players who play for Inter Miami, but Luis Suarez is definitely on top of my list. I think he's going to get the Golden Boot for Leagues Cup if Inter Miami goes to the final, by the way. I've already called that last time around, so...
Yeah, dude, that was just really cheeky to deke the defender and kind of create an even better opportunity for him on the goal. Not a super impactful game, like from minute 1 to minute 90, but...
I was going to ask, did you do anything else this game? Did you do anything else apart from that goal?
I didn't rewatch the game, so nothing's really coming to mind, but he was involved. I mean, we had the first 25 minutes, we had so many opportunities, and he was involved, so I don't want to, take anything away from him, and he did have a really nice goal. Drake Callender had 2 really nice saves, but other than that, didn't have a ton to do. Aviles, he was really frustrated on that second penalty. Aviles was fine. Again, didn't have a ton to do. I thought he was driven out a few more times. I think on the play where Chelo Weigandt fouls the guy, Derek Etienne, in the box, Aviles is coming over to set himself up to make a play. And so I just felt it was such an unnecessarily foul for Chelo, that you just robbed the guy coming to support you of an opportunity to support you. But anyways, Busquets, incredible passer from the back line. He does everything that you want from him in this game as a distributor. And by the way, he did it with his feet at the same spot as the 2 center backs. He can do that exact same thing as a center back. You don't take away from his game in the midfield or his ability to impact the game going forward by putting him on a center back, because he's so good. His vision's so good that I'm not championing an idea that is hugely popular, but Busquets can play on that back line, and I think it might be better for our team. I get that others want to see him back in the midfield, but I am not in such a hurry when he's being replaced by Aviles or Christoph or whatever. Diego Gomez came back. This was his first game back from the Olympics. Really nice performance. Missed a shot wide, but makes up for it with a goal 60 seconds later. Julian Gressel was involved early, comes out at halftime. He's probably frustrated at that. Yannick Bright comes in at halftime. And yes, I can make every conversation about Yannick Bright. And we were much better defensively. The midfield was closed. It was closed for business in the second half, and it was open for business in the first half. And that was on Yannick Bright. We see Kramaski return. Didn't have an impactful moment, but was certainly busy. Noah Allen, you want to have a conversation about Noah Allen coming in?
I mean, he stepped in a few times now, so
the choice of Allen. Christoph was available. Ian Frey was available.
I don't know. I feel like Tata saw him do well last time around when he was asked to come in and play that role with Busquets was playing centre back then as well, and now as well. And he thought, okay, maybe we need a little bit of athleticism in that back line with Busquets. So potentially that's why he brought on Noah Allen. But
Yeah,
a conversation to be had about how Tata Martino sees Noah Allen's role evolve over the next months.
Yeah, I think the athleticism is true. You want to partner him with someone more athletic. I'm curious why that might not have been Ian Frey, but I don't know what Tata's thinking with Ian Frey. David Ruiz didn't do a ton, and then Leo Campana comes on and has a really nice potential assist that Redondo doesn't finish. But other than that, not a lot to talk about. Are we seeing Tata Martino give players game time that don't actually deserve it? And I want to hear your thoughts in the chat, because a lot of the times Tata Martino, or just in general, like when you're watching your favorite team, the coach will make a decision and you're like, that's the wrong decision. But you can see how he came to that decision. You can see why he might have thought that. And just because you think differently doesn't mean that you're always right. And that doesn't mean the coach is always right. But you can understand why the coach may have done what he did. Like, we're talking about putting Gressel in the midfield and Rojas out wide. Like, I'm not sure that makes Inter Miami a better team, but I can understand why he would want to do that. I do not understand what is the deal with Redondo in the midfield. I do not understand what it is about starting Gressel every single game. And I do not understand at all what it is with this Chelo Weigandt, Ian Frey thing. Is it because I'm missing something? Or is it because he went to those players and he said, I promise you, I will start you every game you're healthy if you come here. And he is sacrificing overall quality of performance in order to live up to that promise? Or does he just like guys that speak Spanish and Julian Gressel?
Yes, that. I mean, again, to play the devil's advocate, being a football manager is a lot more than just putting the right team on the pitch. I don't know what internal dynamics he has to deal with. You mentioned one where he may have promised some of the players to that they're going to get game time when they come to Miami. It could be that because of their price tag, he's been forced to play what the instructions are from the upper management. We don't know that, and it's again, when you've paid
there's no instruction from upper management. There's no instruction.
But when you've paid $8 million for Redondo, you need to start him, right? So, but yeah, I completely agree with you. There's a conversation to be had.
You don't, because they also spent a lot of money to bring in Julian Gressel, and they also spent a lot of money to bring in Sergio Busquets, and they also spent a lot of money to bring in Diego Gomez. Like, you're telling me that you have young, bright, promising prospects in Kramaski and Bright, and you're not playing them because you have a different player that has to be earning his game time, because he has to be developing and improving and competing. And this isn't exactly what you want in a young roster that's so deep and that's trying to win, is guys competing for spots every single week. The other thing, and I don't want to have this conversation, and so I'm just going to say it and then we're going to move on. But we can go back to blaming Tata. But if you have a player that's going to be a problem if he's not starting, that's a problem, and you don't want to introduce that. And so I'm not even going to name any names, but if there are players that are going to be chemistry problems in the locker room if they're not playing, or if they feel like they've been benched, that is another reason you might see this. Now, I'm going to blame it on Tata, because Tata is a grown man and he is, comfortable getting criticism, and he's the coach. But that has now crossed my mind, because it just doesn't make sense. The Chelo thing, the Chelo Ian Frey thing is the most egregious, but Yannick Bright is also egregious. And yeah, and Kareem makes a good point. Both Chelo and Redondo are easily replaceable. You didn't, and going back to how much money you spent on a player, like, we didn't spend anything on Chelo. We spent more time and energy developing Ian Frey than we have on bringing in Chelo Weigandt. So I don't get it.
That's right, man. We'll figure it out. Hopefully, we can still lift a cup.
I don't think we will.
Hopefully, we can have this conversation again in like 2 weeks when Chelo Weigandt starting every game and Redondo's in the midfield.
And the problem or frustrating part about this is it's okay in the MLS regular season because you're building something. You're trying to build chemistry between Aviles and Martinez, or you're trying to develop Redondo into a player, and you're trying to see if he can catch fire, or you're trying to get him a different, like all of that I understand. But it's now winter and it's trophy time. So that's why I'm like super concerned about it. A lot of people want Tata out, but we're winning games. I know we don't like his tactics. I have no problem with his tactics. It's his personnel decisions that have been very frustrating to me. And I think he earned a lot of credit over the last 2 months for his tactics and his ability to put out a game plan that works. But the questions about his personnel decisions remain. I think his personnel decisions cost us the game on Saturday against Tigres. I think he made some poor decisions in last night's game that made that game more competitive and less easy than it should have been. And if he does those against the Columbus Crew, we're going to lose. And his best performance as a coach, I thought, came against the Columbus Crew 2 months ago when we beat them 2-1 at Chase Stadium. He needs to repeat that with the right personnel if we're going to beat them on Monday night at lower.com field. Anything on that?
No, I completely agree with you. He's made some very major errors when it comes to personnel changes. And we've always mentioned how talented this team is. And all the coach needs to do is pick the right team and let it play out. You don't even need to have that level of tactics. When he needed the level of tactics, as we saw in the last stretch of 10 games where we didn't have Messi and Suárez, he showed up with the best game plan. We won the games and it was brilliantly done. But at the end of the day, when you have a talented team that can perform so well on the pitch, you want to put out the best team, and the personnel needs to be on point because then they can go and do the job. And we saw that regardless of what decisions he made in terms of who he wanted on the pitch at the start of the game, we had to revert back to having Yannick Bright in the midfield, going back with Sergio Busquets in the back line. And that's the irony, right? Like, he tried to get away from that. And the first thing that he had to do when he tried it in that game against Toronto is go back to those exact same people that he, sort of switched out, or positions that he switched out. So hopefully in the next game, he's forced to make some of the changes that we want to see in terms of having Busquets back in the back line and Bright in the midfield. But long term, it's still a big question mark, and I'm sure we're going to keep having this conversation.
Yeah. I just saw this earlier from Skrillo. When Messi comes back, Tata could go with the 4-4-2. I'd be really interested to see this, especially
that would be a good one. Yeah.
Especially if Messi's not one of the two. I think that would be very interesting. If you get like a Diego Gomez as a left midfielder and Messi as a right midfielder with Yannick Bright and Kramaski, like two hardworking runners, or maybe Bright and Gomez in the midfield. And then you have Campana and Suárez up top for Messi and maybe Matías Rojas on the left, or Julian Gressler or whatever to whip, to create with. I think that would be really fun. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and we can do it briefly because we're getting close to 90 minutes here, is it is the 17th minute between the Columbus Crew and Sporting Kansas City, and it is currently tied 0-0. 19th minute, I apologize. Let's assume we're going to play the Columbus Crew on Monday night at lower.com field. How should we be feeling about that game? How should Inter Miami fans be feeling? We're not going to be back until the pregame show. And so should we be ultra stressed over the course of the weekend if the Columbus Crew advance? Or should we feel like, no, these are two great teams, but we are just as good as them?
Yes, these are two great teams. We're just as good, maybe even better than them, but we still need to feel nervous because it's going to be a hard game, man, regardless of who it is. Again, it's no results are guaranteed. As I saw in the chat, someone mentioned Cincinnati's losing. Pachuca lost to Toronto as well. Some big teams have been knocked out.
LA Galaxy lost last night.
The LA Galaxy lost as well. So it's not a given, and you have to perform on the day. So regardless of what tactics we try to play, it's not.
Cincinnati's now tied 1-1, just for the record.
Okay. Fair, but still, we'll see. It's going to be a nervous couple of days, though.
Here's what I'll say: if he starts a midfield with Gressel, Busquets, and Federico Redondo, we're going to lose. I am interested to see what he can come up with. Because listen, the most impressive tactical performance and setup performance he's had at Inter Miami came against the Columbus Crew 2 months ago. And it blew me away. It was not something I ever expected. We spent an hour in the pregame show talking about how they were going to do this. And then it was just completely unexpected. A 5-2-3, completely sacrificing the midfield, giving it up and winning the game in other parts of the pitch. We had a lot of injuries and Messi was gone. Copa America had started, stuff like that. And so I was very impressed. I'm very interested to see what Tata Martino can come up with for Monday night. If again, we played the Columbus Crew.
And they'll be prepared. Crew's going to be prepared.
They will. And they're going to this is going to be a revenge game for them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a prove it game for them. Of course I don't know the state of the players, but the fans of Columbus feel like Miami is taking something from them. They feel like they deserve to have all the attention as defending champions and the team that went to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. They feel like they deserve to be respected as if they are the best team in the league. And they had some big wins lately against like LAFC. They beat 5-1 on the road. They feel like they deserve to be the best team or talked about as if they're the best team, and they aren't. And they blame that on Inter Miami and they blame that on Messi. And so I'm assuming the players feel similarly. They are going to want to prove something. And it's going to be a delicious game if that happens. And I just hope Tata Martino sets us up to give us an opportunity to win that game, because it would be crushing if we feel like the minute the lineup comes out that we're going to lose that game and then we go on to, because
not again, man.
I can't take that. Okay. Anything before we wrap it up?
Let's go, man.
Guys, the games are here. It is do or die. Round of 16 Leagues Cup title defense. We'll be back Monday, 1 hour before the game starts, live on YouTube. I hope you join us. We will see you then. Guys, enjoy your weekend, and let's go Herons.